Hello everyone, Killer Shrew Fan here, and I hope you're doing well. Now today we will be doing a discussion video that is long overdue. About 2 weeks ago, Safari Ltd dropped their 2020 dinosaur toy lineup, and unfortunately, this being the busy time of the year it is for me, I was unable to sit down and record my thoughts on them, so this is definitely going to be late news to some of you. But that's never stopped me before, and it's certainly not going to stop me now from sharing my own thoughts and opinions with all of you out there. So we're going to go ahead and talk about what Safari Ltd has for us just around the corner. As always, we're going to start off with the stuff that I find a little less exciting, and then kind of work our way up to the big stuff. So jumping right in, right off the bat, we've got the new for 2020 Safari Ltd Ichthyosaur. This one is not bad by any means. It's pretty simplistic, nothing too incredible, but I do like the aesthetic that they are using here. I like the sort of killer whale coloration that they got going on, the sort of smooth sculpture. The eye looks really bold and lifelike. I think it all works pretty well for what it is. Unfortunately, it's just not something that I myself am getting excited about. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. In fact, I'd say it is pretty good, but me being me, it's not something that I personally am pining for or was hoping for from Safari Ltd. Moving on, we have got, for all of you ancient crocodilian fans out there, the new for 2020 Safari Ltd Sarcosuchus. Again, personally, I never got into the whole ancient crocodile fad. I'd never really get excited about seeing these things in toy form. I mean, they're cool and all, but for me personally, it's just nothing that I get too worked up about. So, and again, with the Ichthyosaurus and this Sarcosuchus, they are very well done. The sculptural details on this thing are pretty tight. The individually sculpted scales, the teeth, the shape, the proportions, all seems pretty good. I mean, anytime you nail crocodilian texturing, I think you're doing pretty well, because that always looks appealing for some reason. And the color scheme that they chose to go with definitely feels natural and lifelike. But again, me being me, it's not something that I am particularly excited about. For all of you crocodilian fans out there, I'm sure this one is going to be high on your list. Definitely one that I will not be picking up. But if you like this thing, then hey, it's going to be a good year for you. Moving on to the stuff that I'm a little more invested in, first and foremost, we've got the Shringosaurus. Now, when this thing was released to the public, the studies on this, the discoveries of this creature, I thought, when I saw it, I'm like, I want that thing in toy form. And Safari Ltd wasted no time jumping on that bus. Unfortunately, when I thought that to myself, I also thought it could go one of two ways. A, it could look really, really cool, or B, it could look really, really goofy. Unfortunately, this one kind of falls into the goofy area, I feel like. It feels proportionally wonky, a bit cartoony, and the sculptural details are kind of run-of-the-mill for Safari. There's nothing about this that stands out as gorgeous to me or interesting to the eye. It just looks like a cartoon monster, and unfortunately, that's not good enough for me. I wanted to see this thing as a toy. Safari Ltd delivered, but it's not anything that I'm too excited about looking at it now in toy form. It just, I don't know. I can't put my finger on exactly why I don't like this thing, but I don't. It's unfortunate, because this is something that I have wanted ever since I saw the artistic renderings of what this thing was. The paint scheme isn't bad. I like the color palette. We'll kind of get into like an overall critique of color palettes later, but here I think it's applied well. I like the stripes. I like the brown legs going into the yellow and orange midsection, the brown stripes and spots breaking up that coloration. It all gradiates really well into each other. It's just, yeah, it feels lacking on the sculptural end of things, which is very unfortunate. The feet just look way too big for my taste. I don't know. That's just something I'm seeing as I'm looking at it now. This is kind of stream of conscious. I haven't sat down and wrote out all my thoughts, but yeah, that's just me. I'm sure there are people out there who are very excited to see this thing in toy form, and unfortunately I'm not one of them. I mean, I am excited to see it in toy form. I just wish it was a little better. in toy form. Next up, we have got the Safari Ltd. Pachycephalosaurus. It seems that Safari is back at their BS about remaking all of their classic Carnegie dinosaur lineup. I know I say BS, but, you know, I don't mean that. It's always, they're just back at their business of doing that. And yes, this one is a significant improvement over the previous Pachycephalosaurid offerings from Safari Ltd. The sculptural details are all quite crisp. I like the individually sculpted scales. All of the bones and horns and protrusions and all that stuff is working for me. The eye is painted nice and lifelike. It looks very good. There's something, again, about this figure that I find myself a bit put off by. It's not something I can put my finger on. Maybe it's the uniformity of the scales that's bugging me. I don't know. I don't know if I also am a fan of like the black outline around all of those little osteoderms. Kinda is rubbing me the wrong way. It doesn't look like it's very active. It just kind of looks a little dumpy in its posing. I mean, it's not bad. None of these figures are bad. I'm going to say right now, I'm going to perforate this video by saying this year compared to last year is a major improvement to Safari Ltd. I don't know what happened to them last year with some of their figures, but dang, this year they got back on the track, which is, reassuring to see. But for whatever reason, these first few figures just aren't doing it for me. I know, I'm running low on shelf space at this point, and I'm getting to that stage in my collecting life where if I'm going to add something to the collection, it has got to absolutely wow me. Otherwise, there's no point to it. All it's going to do is take up precious little shelf space. So, yeah, this Pachycephalosaurus, not bad. Probably going to be a skip for me as well. Speaking of skips, we are moving on to the Safari Ltd. Dilophosaurus. Again, not a horrible figure. I like the color scheme, the way the paint all gradiates into one another, all the color, the banded tail, that all looks fantastic. The orange crest, the eye is lovingly painted. All of that looks good. But looking at this thing, and, while also, comparing it to the previous Dilophosaurus offering from Safari Ltd., it feels to me like there's nothing that I'm missing. I don't know. I like the old Safari Dilophosaurus. This one, though not bad, is just nothing where I'm like, wow, that one is head and shoulders above the old Safari offering, and because of that, I'm going to pick it up. It might be more accurate. As always, Safari does do their improvements upon their previous offerings, but for me personally, it's just nothing I'm very excited about. And another issue that I'm seeing with it is that it is in fact a tripod dinosaur. It's using its tail as a third point of contact with the ground, and that is a long tail, and I can see why it has to stand back on it. Yeah, very long tail. But yeah, it's just kind of an unfortunate element, especially with Safari Ltd. They've proven to us in the past that they can make these, active figures that don't need to be balanced on the tail, and then this year they did it not once, but twice, maybe 3 times with the Packy. Hard to say, but, that's one of those things where we'll just have to wait and see. Getting into the more exciting stuff, the stuff that I'm actually, hopeful about, we have got a dinosaur that I have actually never heard of, the Kansisaurus, and pardon me if I pronounced that incorrectly. I gotta say, I'm a big fan of this one. It looks like some sort of Tyrannosaurid, and I do like what is going on in this model. The sculptural detail is pretty appealing to the eye. There's a lovely area of paint across the board, but particularly in the midsection region there around the swell of the gut. That looks gorgeous. My only critique with this thing is that the teeth look absolutely minuscule. They don't look like they're sharpened or anything. They just look like they're sort of painted in as dots, and that to me is a bit disappointing. The eye also doesn't look as well done as some of the previous dinosaurs we've looked at today, but yeah, I think the big issue that I have with this thing is definitely those tiny teeth. Looks like it's wearing dentures or something. Like it lost all of its, regular teeth, so it had to get some dentures. I don't know. But yeah, the teeth don't work for me. Everything else does. I like the pose, the coloration, the sculptural details. It looks great, and the active lithe posture is very appealing to me. The way that they managed to capture this thing as looking both powerful, but also sleek and delicate too. That's a great balance to achieve, and this is definitely one that I think I will be adding to the collection. Next up, quite possibly one of the best that they gave us this year, we have the Dakotaraptor. This little guy is gorgeous. I absolutely love how this figure is looking. The color scheme reminds me of like a bald eagle. The sculptural details in the feathers are very well handled. I know like the past 2 years that Safari Ltd have delivered us a fully feathered dinosaur with the Caudiopteryx and the Anzu. I wasn't a fan of those because they took those feathers and they gave them this god-awful like parrot color scheme, which I never like. This one, it feels a lot more grounded and believable, and it looks fantastic. The only issue I have with this figure is the fact that it is yet again another tripod. It is in a tripod posture with its tail as that third point of contact, which is never a good thing, but I can forgive it because unlike the Dilophosaurus, everything else about this thing feels pleasing to my eye. So, job well done with this one, Safari. Most likely gonna pick it up. I can't find anything else to say about it other than it's good, it works, solid. Next up, one of my favorite offerings from Safari Ltd this year, we have got the Concavenator. Now, unlike the Dilophosaurus, which existed as both a Carnegie Collection and standard Safari Ltd release, the Concavenator, to my knowledge, was only a Carnegie Collection release, and that thing is awesome. That is one of my favorite Carnegie figures ever produced. So when they decided to remake it, it could have, backfired on them because they were following up such a great little figure. This guy looks gorgeous. I absolutely love the color scheme that they have selected for this thing with the darker stripes and then the white highlight stripes. It gives this a very graphic look. The red crest over the eyes, the red eyes themselves, the sculptural details are great. I love the posture. It's fluid, it's lifelike, but it's not relying on its tail for balance. I like almost everything about this Concavenator, so job well done on this one, Safari. Definitely one that I will be picking up. What can I say? I mean, it looks great to me. And finally, my absolute favorite offering from Safari Ltd this year, we have got the Edmontosaurus. This thing is just beautiful. It is so gorgeous. The sculptural details, there's variation in it that is very appealing to my eye. You've got big scales, big circular scales, big sort of more reptilian scales, and then you've got small scales adorning the face. The beak has texturing on it as well, and I love that they reserved the crest area for a splash of color that really balances out the entire thing. I think if you didn't have that red crest or some other bold coloration on that crest, we would have had a different story. I would have thought this thing might look a little bit boring. I mean, the rest of the paint job is really nice. I like the cream midsection, the white underbelly, and then the brown patterning. But without that red, it might have just looked a little too uniform. So that was a fantastic call on Safari Ltd's part. This thing is 100% my favorite thing that Safari Ltd is offering us this year, and I cannot wait to add this one to the collection. For me personally, it just blows everything else out of the water, and it's certainly one that I will be comfortable allowing to take up space on my shelves. Just want to make a general comment that's kind of all-encompassing this year, and that is for a company that usually does a good job of like making sure all the paint schemes and aesthetics of each dinosaur are unique. This year, it feels like they're all too uniform. Like if I just look at a wall of these images, it looks to me like we've got the same aesthetics for almost all of them. They all go back to the warm tones with sort of green highlight areas and stuff like that with green tones mixed in, but it doesn't feel like there are no standouts when I look at them all as one as completely unique, because they all go back to the sort of yellows and oranges. Some of them have greens in them, and of course, they're apt to change from the glamour shots to the final product. But it just felt a little weird to me that looking at all of these things side by side, that they all felt very aesthetically similar, when in previous years Safari Ltd have made sure that their dinosaurs all stand out from one another. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one who's picked up on that, maybe I'm the only one that cares, but yeah, just kind of a general note. And I do hope that Safari Ltd chooses not to continue making all of their dinosaurs in this sort of similar aesthetic. I do like how they take bold approaches. Sometimes it blows up in their face, like in the aforementioned city, it's not a Cottyteryx, it's a city patty and an Anzu. I know I said Cottyteryx, that's my bad. It's the city patty and Anzu that kind of blew up in their face, but that doesn't mean I necessarily want them to just like stop using bold and unique color designs. So that's my final note. As always, I want to know what you guys think of this year's lineup. How many of these things are going to be must-haves for you, and how many of them are going to be skips? Let me know your favorites down in the comments section below. As always, I love reading through all of your guys' thoughts, as well as hearing my own. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this video today. If you enjoyed it, don't be afraid to let me know by hitting that like button, and if you want to hear from me down the road, don't forget to subscribe on the way out. I will be purchasing and reviewing these things just as soon as they hit the web. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and that's going to do it for us today. Killer Shrew Fan, out.